All right, let's take a look at the morning's newspapers. We're joined by Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, and
proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
all right, let's take a look at the morning's newspapers. We're joined by Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, and Shona Craven, columnist from The National. Shona, Ryan, morning to you.
Morning.
Morning.
Good to see you both. Let's get straight into it. Story on the front of The Times. I think it's on the front of The Guardian as well, many of the other papers as well. Situation in Iran.
Yeah, that's right. President Trump has said that the Iranian supreme leader is actually looking to flee the country. There's actually lots of speculation that there could be visas being arranged for him and his family, closest aides, to go to Russia. So that seems one sort of part of the story, as well as all the sort of the protests and the demonstrations, those anti-regime protests on the actual streets. And as well as having that, you've got the tit for tat between Khamenei and Trump at the same time. You've also got Khamenei saying that Trump is encouraging the vandals on the streets. So you've got so many different levels of this playing out. And then you had the sort of European angle last night. You had Keir Starmer, Friedrich Merz and Emmanuel Macron saying that in Iran, the Iranian authorities really need to show restraint over this, and they condemned the actions there. So multitude of different facets of this playing out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in the meantime, incredibly brave protesters continuing to pour onto the streets. I think we're in day 13 now of protests in larger numbers than we've seen, they think, since 2009. We have seen sporadic protests, haven't we?
Yeah.
But the real question is whether there is going to be a brutal crackdown now by a stepping up of the crackdown by authorities.
Yeah, so these protests have been growing. Initially, this was to do with the economy, but it's obviously gathered strength. But it's very striking in the Times reporting to see the contrast in that language. You've got the European leaders talking about exercising restraint, talking about protecting freedom of expression. And then you've got Donald Trump warning that the United States would hit them very hard if the Iranian authorities use deadly force against the protesters. So you've got those two contrasting approaches. And, of course, Donald Trump's voice tends to be the loudest one and the one that is leading this story in the Times.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to this story that's making column inches in The Guardian. It's also been reported in other places as well. This is about... well, it's basically a growing spat between X, its AI Grok bot, and the UK government.
Yeah, so the line is ministers threaten to ban X over Grok images. And The Guardian has some quite in-depth coverage of this, which I was quite shocked, actually, by some of the figures. So this has started towards the end of the year with Grok, the AI tool on X, being asked to put her in a bikini, so taking a picture of a dressed woman, and the AI making changes. And so this has been sort of building for a few weeks, but The Guardian's research has found that by the 8th of January, as many as 6,000 bikini demands were being made to the chatbot every hour, and then what it calls the mainstreaming of nudification technology escalated so much that it then became, much more extreme images, and indeed some images involving children, which would be illegal materials. So in response to this, the Ofcom watchdog has said it will accelerate an inquiry into X, and under the Online Safety Act, it can compel platforms to tackle these problems, and the ultimate sanction is to block a site or an app altogether.
Well, yeah, and Liz Kendall has kind of said, yeah, we would be prepared to go that far if we don't get a satisfactory response, and we want it in days rather than weeks. And, they cite their work on violence against women and girls and saying that this is abuse, effectively.
Yeah, it was staggering yesterday. The government response was saying, how can this still happen? You can still carry out, these images, nudification, if you actually pay for the service. Yeah. That is not a solution. I think Downing Street were really, really angry about this.
I mean,
yesterday.
X are arguing the reason they're saying that paid subscribers can only do it is that then, if they do anything that's outside, the law or the limits of the site, they then can track them down.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for Ofcom. Liz Kendall, the Technology Secretary, yesterday was saying that she would back anything that Ofcom did. It's going to be interesting to see does the online safety laws that came in a couple of years ago. It's got to show that it's worth the paper it's written on. So if there are fines to be levied, if there are penalties to actually come forward, it's got to happen. And if she wants to, you can create a de facto ban because you can stop people dealing with the internet service providers carrying it. You can stop advertisers from dealing with it. So there are things they can do. But it seems like we're going to wait for this Ofcom report, see what they say, and see if any action is taken.
Well, it's got to be coming pretty soon, hasn't it? I mean, the extraordinary thing about this is that this was an update that allowed this to start happening on Grok. So this is something that X have decided to put in. Talk about advertisers pulling out. The Guardian also have reporting that 60% have pulled out. So their revenues have fallen by 60% because advertisers are pulling out. And there also seems to be some moves within government, within the political class, to stop using X entirely because of what's going on here.
I mean...
I was going to say that I've heard this over the last couple of days, and lots of ministers, Anna Turley, the Labour Party chairman, was talking about this yesterday, saying the conversation is taking place. It's going to be a big thing for the government or the Labour Party or both to actually pull off X. And actually, I think there was some legislation that could come forward in America against Sir Keir Starmer over freedom of expression. And
well, that's the other argument. Yeah, there's warnings of possible sanctions, and it has become a row around that. Or certainly Musk wants to make it that, doesn't he? I'm going to give X's response. They've previously said anyone using Grok to make illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they uploaded illegal content. But Elon Musk has responded to somebody on X talking about this issue and has said they want any excuse for censorship. And they also point out that other AI bots do the same, do the same thing. They want to make it about freedom of speech, don't they?
It's not a great excuse, is it? You know, other people are doing this, so we should be allowed to do it too. And it comes to the heart of this sort of game of whack-a-mole against AI. And, you know, this is just the latest problem and the latest, perhaps unforeseen consequence of allowing people to ask these bots to do whatever they want. And unfortunately, you know that there will be people who will use that for the worst purposes. But yeah, there's a huge contradiction between the government taking this hard line against X, but also putting out its own messages and some of its own propaganda on that same platform. And until there is a sort of agreed switch over to another platform, which was attempted when Elon Musk took over.
Been there before, haven't we?
We need something to replace it with.
Let's move on, shall we, to the Eye. This is, well, it's on their front page, but there's plenty more coverage inside about possible changes to the way that asylum seekers are housed.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, there's been, over the last few years, with lots of people coming over here in small boats, illegal migration or asylum seekers, they've been housed in asylum hotels. Now, this has been costing billions and billions of pounds. Now, one thing that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is trying to do is trying to reduce that bill. And one of the things that she's trying to target, if you have a right to work, that she will take away those benefits, those housing benefits, those support benefits. And this story is quite interesting. It actually reveals the figures. 8 to 10,000 people living in asylum accommodation actually have the right to work here anyway because of the visa that they're on. And if you have been waiting more than 12 months on your asylum case, you have the right to work as well. So it's going to be interesting that if she actually pushes through with this to try and reduce the bill. But once you do move people out of asylum hotels, where do they go? Do they go to these homes of multiple occupancy? Do they go into private accommodation? Can you keep track of them?
Do they live on the street, as we saw in Dublin when people were kicked out of asylum hotels?
Yeah.
No, I was only going to raise the question. We were talking about this in the break, weren't we, Shona? The confusion about if someone's an asylum seeker, but they have a visa and have the right to work. I didn't realise that was the situation.
Yeah, I think that will come as a surprise to a lot of people because people are, I think, generally quite well informed now on the fact that if you're seeking asylum, that can take a long time, and also in the meantime, you're not allowed to work. So it's a bit dizzying to read the different categories of people who are being targeted by this policy. It includes asylum seekers who can support themselves financially but choose not to, which surely is not a large number. No. But then you've also got those who have a right to work, those who break the law or are working illegally, and those who refuse in order to leave the country. So a huge diversity of different people. And I think, as you say, a lot of people would be a bit surprised by that figure of the number of people who are in asylum accommodation but have the right to work. and may well be working. And so you would then say, should they support themselves? Of course, the bigger question is whether you can support yourself by working in the UK just now and whether there is enough accommodation for people regardless of their state.
I think this is just one of the other things of the deterrence they're trying to do. So you know that if you come here, you may not get the hotel accommodation. If there is the deterrent as well, of you may be sent back to the country that you came from, that is also on the cards as well. So I think it's one of these sort of angles of moving back to, or looking to where Denmark as well, these Denmark-style changes as well, and trying to follow that.
Yeah.
We've only got a minute left. Let's move on to a story in your paper, Ryan, about Prince Harry and the King. Exclusive reporting that there might be an olive branch offered and they could be getting back to being father and son.
Yeah, that's right. One of Prince Harry's big campaigning issues, one of the big things that he organises is the Invictus Games. And what he's trying to do is make that part of the reconciliation with his dad, King Charles. The Invictus Games, it's held in different countries all over the world, America, Canada. It comes back to Britain in 2027. And he said that he would fulfil his dream if it means that he can have King Charles with him by his side. Now, they've only met a couple of times in a few years. They've been very sort of brief meetings. So it seems like there's probably a lot of work to be done behind the scenes before this can actually happen. So
yeah.
let's
it would
see.
be a very sort of public moment of reconciliation,
moment,
wasn't it, if they were pictured together there. One to watch, interesting stuff. We're out of time, but you'll both be back several times through the morning. We're very happy to say thank you both very much indeed for now.
Okay, see you soon.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?